through the night. One of the, well, let's run through these species. I've tried to give a bit of a rundown of, you know, sort of selection of some of the well-known species that we know as Australian natives, not necessarily as bonsai, but as Australian natives. And we'll start out with the eucalypts. So, you know, they're probably the thing we found hardest to grow as bonsai because obviously they're rapid growing plants, they're apically dominant in that they grow up tall very quickly. So keeping them to a good bonsai size can be hard. Some of them don't. Once you cut them back a few times, they start dropping whole branches. So they're hard to maintain the shape and then you have to reshape them again. But because they grow so quickly, it's not such an issue because you can perhaps grow a new tree again in a couple of years and you've still got the big trunk. This one is, most you would have heard of mountain ashes. Now they're the biggest flowering tree in the world. You know, it can grow up to 100 metres high, 300 feet roughly, probably a bit over, 110 metres I think the tallest one was ever measured. And that was measured back in I think the late 1800s or thereabouts, and the only way they could measure it was to chop it down. So that's what they did, chopped it down and ran a tape along it. So yeah, very, very big trees, but can be grown as bonsai. Obviously they have big leaves, something you've just got to put up with. These leaves are not, these are the actual juvenile leaves on one of these. The mature leaves on a mountain ash are the long sort of crescent shaped leaves you'll see. So this one, because I constantly pinch it, is always in its juvenile foliage. But that's okay, it still makes a nice looking tree. It does shed the bark like these do in nature. Every second year it has a big shedding of bark, so it had a big shedding of bark last year, so now you're seeing just a smooth trunk. It will shed a little bit this summer, but in 2 summers' time it will shed pretty much all its bark, and then I'll go back to smooth trunk again. And the shedding of it gives you some nice textures and colours on the trunk. So they're eucalypts now. There's a number of eucalypts where we have been growing. We've got fairly good knowledge. Red gums, the Eucalyptus camalculensis, they are very good for bonsai. If you're going to grow a eucalypt, grow those. They tend to bud back on old wood fairly well. You can defoliate them to keep needle size down.
Grow them in water.
You can grow them in water, and you might see, if you're lucky, you all heard about air layering, where you put some sphagnum moss around the trunk and grow roots. Well, these tend to do it naturally. If you see them growing in an area that's been flooded for years, perhaps, or even months, when the waters recede, you'll see they put out little roots around where the water level was. So they will air layer quite well. So they're easy to grow. What else are we growing? There's quite a few that's growing all sorts of eucalypts, yellow box, red box,
Nicolii,
which is the peppermint gum. That's one I really like, but it's not one of the easiest to grow and keep its shape. It tends to drop branches and lose branches, so you've got to redesign it every 3-4 years or so. But it has a small leaf, so that really does help with it. So that's eucalypts. Well worth trying, but not one of the easiest. So if you're going to start out, probably the best species to start with would be melaleucas, or some of the melaleucas. They naturally have a small leaf. A lot of them will bud back on bare wood. Not all of them, but a lot of them will. So that makes it easy to shape the tree.
What's the common name?
Melaleucas, paperbarks, yeah. So any of the paperbarks, paperbarks. Most of them are very good for bonsai. Some won't bud that terribly easy on this one. This is Armillaris. You'll see it as a fairly common street tree around. Some forms of it bud back on bare wood very easily, some don't. It's really a matter of trial and error with that one. This one did. I was able to chop it back just to nothing, bare wood, and then grow everything in. And you can see by constant pinching and shaping, you've got a really compact little tree very quickly. Small leaves, You can have deadwood on them if you like. The root systems are generally very compact once they go into pots. So Melaleucas are really one worth trying. There's this one, Armillaris, you know, the prickly paperbark, another one common around the streets. Stifleoides, Melaleucas stifleoides. Also really, probably my favourite to grow as bonsai.
Can they be air layered?
Yes, I have air layered one of these. Not this one, but I have air layered one of these. I have seen Snow in Summer, which is Melaleuca linearifolia, which is also a fairly common street tree. I have seen those air layered. I've seen an interesting technique with, I think it's Stifleoides. Sometimes you'll see, if you're out looking closely at trees, you'll see some of the Melaleucas sort of tend to run some roots down the trunk from high up.
Well, that one will.
This one will, quite a few will. So they tend to run a root down almost under the papery bark and run it down into the soil. So what I know a friend of mine has just chopped them off, completely chopped the trunk off. So he's got this root coming down, chopped it off, put it in a tub of water that doesn't drain. He's put gravel in the tub but then filled it up, and he's developed roots on that. So it's not quite air layering, but you could air layer them, I would think, quite easily. I won't say all the Melaleucas will air layer, but a lot of them will. If you are going to air layer them, pick an interesting spot. Don't just stick them on a bit straight and no taper. Put it somewhere where it's going to make sense. I see so many people air layer trees, but they'll just put them on a straight piece and think, oh, air layer, great. Then what do you do with it? Put it somewhere where it's got some movement. Put it somewhere where there's, perhaps a possibility of a twin trunk or something like that. But yeah, they will air layer quite well. So for me, they're probably the easiest variety to grow as bonsai. So if you're starting out with Australian native, apart from figs, we've got a lot of figs that are Australian natives, and we tend to sort of forget about those as being Australian natives. We turn our noses up at them, but they are Australian natives. So some of the figs, the common ones you'll see at all the shows, the Reviginosa, which is the Port Jackson fig, the Moreton Bay fig, all those are Australian natives. But once you go past the figs, go to Melaleucas. They're really well worth doing as bonsai.
What street did you dig that one out from?
Actually, I got this from Mark Ludlow. I think Mark's still a member here. He grows things, or was growing things in the ground up at Rochester, I think. Up in Wimmera District, heading down. So this came from his growing field. No, but you probably could dig them from the street. There's, at the Native Club, we've had a couple of digs where the club's gone out, had permission to dig, and we've gone out and dig. Val's kindly offered up a property of hers, and we've dug a lot of Quincyas out. Now, I don't have any Quincyas here tonight. No one brought any? No. Quincyas are closely related to tea trees, and the variety we dig at Val's place tend to dig really well.
But they don't bud back on.
They don't tend to bud back on bare. Well, we haven't found a way of getting them to bud back on bare.
Not reliably.
I know.
They shoot around the base, but it's very hard to get
so
back.
So when you dig them, if they're quite tall, I mean, some of the members have dug trunks out their size on them and haven't survived, but obviously a trunk that size, the foliage is up quite high. And then when they've lopped them back, the bare branches haven't budded, but they've thrown copious buds around the base. Matt's just showed me a photo of a big one he dug, and he was lucky and got some back budding. And if you get the back budding, you'll get fabulous trees because you've got big trunks. Collected trees give you great movement and interest in the trunks and old bark, all that sort of stuff. And if you can put foliage on them low down, you get great trees. So Quincy is one we've gone and had a lot of success digging.
Second little tree over there, is that comes here?
No, that's a. It's not a Quincy. I think it's yeah, which are very closely related to Quincy. Yep. So digging, we've also gone and digged for eucalypts with mixed success. I think the dig we went on wasn't all that long ago, so we haven't had a long term sort of result on how many lived and how
Can't
many
know.
died. So,
Live.
but eucalypts, the problem with the eucalypts where we went for the dig was they were just long like carrots. You know, they had no surface roots, long carrots. You have to cut them off somewhere. So most of them, I think, will not live, but some might. I don't know. Anybody here went on those digs with us?
Mine are all alive.
Yours are all alive?
Every single one.
There you go. So Tom's got all his alive. All of mine are dead, but only dug one.
I think that all of mine are dead, but I might get a surprise as the weather
it
warms
kind of
up.
depends. I think, you know, perhaps Tom was a bit more sensible and dug smaller things. I went for a reasonably large one, which probably been surviving. So eucalypts are difficult to dig. Callistemons, which we don't have any here on display. I didn't bring any. I don't think they did quite well. I know Matt's dug some monsters out and had virtually no roots on them, and they survived. So callistemons will dig quite well. These guys, melaleucas, tend to dig pretty well. Best time of year to dig them. We've been digging with most success sort of in winter at the Quentin's. We've gone to dig at Bell's place. I would think my preferred time of year is usually May. It tends to give me, if the plant survives the digging, it gives them the whole winter for it to make some roots before the hot summers come. I know you'll read in a lot of the Northern Hemisphere books, you know, dig or do all your work just before the buds start to burst. That might work all right there, but I think our summers come on so hot, so quickly that I think we've got to do all that sort of work much earlier. Having said that, I still tend to pot most of my natives. If I've got the absolute choice, probably early October, something like that is my favourite time to pot them. All right, now, what else was I talking about? Okay, so other species to grow. Tea tree are pretty popular. This is a coastal tea tree. Now you would have seen these down around the bay where they have those, you know, twisty, ropey sort of trunks that fall over and then come up. Fabulous species for bonsai, quite difficult to dig. I have a couple at home that have been collected, but they're not easy to dig, so don't go out and dig everything you see because you're probably going to kill most of those. There are people having a bit more success with them now. We're using various different techniques. The ones that I have at home were sort of scooped out of off a rock shelf, so they hadn't made a lot of roots into the ground. They'd stayed within the basin that they were growing in, so they were easy to scoop out with the help of a bobcat, mind you. But the roots hadn't travelled far, so a lot of those survived. I think most of the ones I've seen dug out of sand and that, where the roots have travelled a long way, just don't survive. So just be very careful. But the beauty of the coastal tea tree is obviously this rough bark. I have seen people who have nursery stock. It was a demonstration tree at the Mornington Peninsula Club about 25 years ago.
Oh gosh.
But it was straight up. It was a straight up vertical beanfole of a thing, probably higher than the roof, and it was shaped up as your typical, left branch, right branch, up at about this height, and then over the years its shape has changed, and this is how it is now. It's currently it is the logo tree of the native club, not that one, but on all our letterheads, etc. This is the tree that's on that. And I really like it. Now, if you looked at it, you go, oh, look, you've got multiple branches all at one spot in there. You should be taking it down to one branch. And then, we always talk you should only have 2 shoots at any one space. That's the basics if you read it. But I think you've got to get past that. I think there are other ways. And
broom style.
Yeah, well, as Tom said, maybe you can call it a broom style. Broom style, in theory, should be straight up and down, but this is a slanting broom style, if you like. Whatever it is, as a bonsai, it works for me. I don't think you necessarily have to classify everything into a shape or a style. So I think it's a lovely tree. One of the issues you have with, and this one kind of did show up, I'm starting to get over it, because they grow so rapidly and you're constantly pinching them, you can just get sometimes a big ball of foliage. So we're really, I'm trying to concentrate now on the trees I do to break that up so that I get little pads through it. It's probably a little bit too round at the moment. I probably should have a few more sort of jaggedy bits coming out of it, but it's getting there. So it's probably one of the assets or faults of natives, that because they grow so quick, we tend to get almost like topiary on them, so we need to be careful of that. So periodically you've got to go back in and cut out some of that topiary look and make individual little pads rather than just a big pad there. Deadwood, you can use that on them. On some of them, I'm not so keen on a lot of my natives. This one I think has some that Mount Ash has a big stub at the front. This was the original leader on the tree. It went up here many years ago. It died off. This was then brought up as a second leader. But I like the way it grew around this dead piece here. So I don't really intend to do too much else. I mean, if it was probably a pine tree or a juniper, you'd highlight that gin and then take a whole lot of shari down the front there. But for me, it doesn't need it on that tree. So you can use deadwood on natives if you want to. Keep asking me any questions you'd like to as we go along. Otherwise, we'll just take questions on one.
That's what I thought too.
Quentin,
Yeah.
those couple of those pots are fantastic. Where are they from?
Okay, so Dave's asked about the pots.
Those two you just showed are unbelievable.
Right. There's a few nice, okay, the pots I just showed. It's funny, I seem to be, finding a lot of my Australian natives into pots made by Australian potters. I don't know why that is, they just seem to have the textures that work. Val, I've got a few in Val's pots. Though that one, we had the tea tree in the Pat Kennedy pot, that's also a Pat Kennedy pot. I remember when Pat first brought these down to Melbourne.
The mud pie pot.
Well, no, we reckon they looked like a cow pat, and his name was Pat, so we call him a cow pat pot. But yeah, I'm finding, and in fact, not every native I've got here tonight's in a Australian native pot, but pretty much all of them are. That big one there was made by a lady on the peninsula. Look, it's rustic looking, but it works for that tree. Another Pat Kennedy pot. Trevor Wheeler, some of you will know Trevor Wheeler. He's a member of the Goldfields Bonsai Club. Pat Kennedy pot. This one is not a traditional, it's more a traditional looking pot, but that's actually made by the mother of one of our members, Hayden. Is he still a member there? Don't know. Hayden? He's not a member, but he was a member.
No, he's a member.
He was on the committee here, but he's pretty busy. His mother made that pot. So while I've got that one out, that's, who's going to tell me what that is?
Casuarina.
Casuarina. So it's a sheo. Casuarina torolosa, which is the rose sheo. The beauty of these is obviously the rough bark they make, and the bigger they get, the more flaky the bark is. What's happening? It's all right.
It was hiding the pot.
Oh,
Yeah, I've just put it down.
So the beauty of these is the rough bark. A lot of people have trouble getting them to bud back down low. They buy a tree this high, cut them off, and they throw shoots at the top. They don't throw them down the bottom. This one was cut down low and then grown up a bit, cut down low again, so those branches sort of put on progressively, and it makes a nice little tree. Very easy to maintain. In fact, I've maintained it or done it today, but usually you just grab once you've got your basic structure, you just grab a clump there and twist off the ends, and pull them all off today, so there's not much I can pull off, but that's all you do. There's no cutting, just grab the clump and just twist them off to keep the shape. You'll get a little bit of browning at the ends, but nowhere near as much as if you cut them. So they're well worth growing. I had a couple, I had one other big one at home plus this one, and I think that's a lovely little native tree.
How big was that Quentin?
Well, not much bigger. I didn't cut it all down, I cut down some. When I got it, this branch was already there, and I think that was there, but then there was a long piece up here. So I cut it down to here and then grew those little bits in. So yeah, look, it had been cut down. The first cut down, I think was probably about here. We grew that one out, and then we threw this one when we got that one, and then I cut it down there and grew those ones. So when I got it, it did have a fairly substantial base, which had been, developed in before the first cut down happened.
That's a good variety for people to start with also, isn't it? Because they bark up very quickly.
They do, yeah. As Barry said, they'll get bark very quickly, so you want to start off with one of those. Well, we'll be growing here, Matt.
How far can you reduce the needles? It's like black pine or?
Yeah, they're not actually needles. There's no good sending one around. That's a branch, effectively. That's a branch. And if you look along the branch later on, you come up, there's little rings around them. They're rings of leaves. So the leaves are minute. So if you look at it, there's a little ring of, it's one of the classifications of these. Sometimes you get 9, 11, 13 little leaves around each spot. So there's 9 there, there's 9 there, there's 9 there. That makes it a Casuarina titulosum, maybe. I'm not sure of the classification, but that's how they do a lot of classification on the number of leaves. So every time you're pinching that out, you're basically pinching out to a ring of leaves. So you can take that back down to the last set of leaves, or really if you wanted to. It's much easier to pinch when they're softer. Some of these are on fairly hard, so they pinch less easily. But you can get the needles down, call them needles, the branches down, and then the leaves quite small if you really want.
Sorry, just going to ask you, see that sort of reduced trunk size as it goes into the ground there, is that
The negative taper.
is that sort of characteristic of that type of tree, or is that?
Yeah, look, it's probably a factor of you've got this lovely corky bark, but it drops off very quickly close to the ground. So you will tend to get that effect. It was also buried a bit too deeply initially, which also tended to rot off the flaky bark. So I guess you could say, yeah, it's a feature of that species. How do you overcome that? It doesn't bother me too much, but I suppose you could just fill it up with potting mix again, a bit of moss around there if you wanted to avoid that. But that's why. It's because the flaky bark around there is rotted away. You'll see that with, you would have seen the Mashiki black pines, the Japanese corky bark pine. A lot of those, and some it's because it's where it was grafted, a lot of those is just because that lower bark is just rotted away. So that's what happens with that.
Quentin, if you wander around in a park, you can pick up matching bark, especially if it's under other casuarinas, and you just
glue it on.
Yeah, temporary glue for the show. Mastic or something, like the grafting mastic behind it, and you can take it off again later because after a while it weathers and doesn't last, but you can make it look effective.
Like Bell's saying, you're basically just getting pieces of bark and sticking it on around there. You can, as she said, you can find bark
That matches.
And it matches, yeah. So you can do that as well.
You don't even have to take the bark off a tree, you find fallen bark.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that, not necessarily with this.
With this, I've done that with a couple of
things.
trees,
You
yeah.
glue branches on, you glue tins on, you glue roots on, you do all that sort of stuff.
Quentin used to do that.
So, but yeah, you could do that with that. Instead of seeing this whitish haze over it there,
Flowers.
there's about 10 million flowers on this plant at the moment. It's a coast beard heath, leucopogon. So there's a lot of these down along the coast as well. They grow in the same sort of places that the coastal tea tree does. They take on magnificent shapes. They're not one of the easier ones to dig, but if you come up later, you'll just see masses of little white flowers on these. Now, if I had to, if you had to guess a common plant that this is closely related to, any guesses? Probably a plant every one of you got in your garden. Anyone want to have a guess?
Rosemary.
Rosemary, and that would be the sort of thing you would guess for. But it's closely related to azaleas. Same family as azaleas. So why is it the same family as azaleas? Probably because some botanists have looked at there's one little individual flower there and said, yep, that's pretty close to an azalea flower, so they're in the same family. But obviously, way different in flower size. Once again, a lovely tree, lovely bark. Once they go into pots, very fibrous root systems, very easy to repot. Do whatever you like, but getting them out of the ground, keeping them alive is difficult. What I'm going to do now before we go through any others, I'm going to get Barry to start wiring up this Yuan pine for me, and I can come and shape it up. So talk a little bit about Yuan pine before Barry gets started. So Yuan pine, why would you grow one, do you reckon?
Because they're beautiful. Look at that foliage.
Well, they are. Look, they are. They're one of our iconic trees. You've probably all heard of Yuan pines. I have one at home. They're probably not one that I choose as the best one for bonsai. But as Val says, you've got this lovely foliage. I tend to shape them into a weeping sort of look. I know some of the Tasmanians don't style them that way, but I think for me they work, just going with this sort of weeping look. So I really should make this a bit easier for Barry so he doesn't have to wire everything up. In contrast to pretty much all these others, yeah, I'll
we're going to talk about
get
other
towards
things
when
while
Barry
we're
started on that. Most of our natives are really brittle. Once you start trying to bend this stuff, they just don't move. And that's probably the biggest drawback to growing in this bonsai, just the brittleness of the branches. They're so easy to break if you overbend them. That's for tea trees. They're not too bad, but it's quite brittle. These are brittle. Waffles, really, really brittle. Mark?
If you do wire them, will they set? It almost strikes me that they won't even set it.
Yeah, no, they will set. That coastal tea tree has set pretty well. This one, probably can't see it. The Melaleuca I put up, yeah, they will set.
But the small branches?
The small branches, even the larger branches, what I tend to do with them, I take them as far as I can trust myself to go before I break, go away for a couple of weeks, take them a bit further, and eventually they'll set in position. But they're not easy. What I have been doing in the last few years now is using copper wire on them, because with aluminium wire, those of you who know who've used aluminium, and all of you should be wiring your trees. If you're not wiring your trees, you're not doing bonsai, is that right, Barry? So you need to be wiring your trees. But with aluminium, when you want to bend a branch, quite often you've got to go past this where you want the branch to sit, because the branch just springs back a bit. With copper, it sets, it's much more, it's easy enough to put on, but once you start moving, you've probably heard of work hardening, which work hardening is a feature of copper and other metals that once they're heated up, they're quite malleable, but once you start moving them, they then start to set in the position where you move them to. So what happens with copper, once you place the branch, it tends not to want to spring back as easily. So I'm using a lot of copper on the brittle natives, because then I don't have to overbend them to get them to the branch where I want them. I just push it to where I want it, and the copper tends to hold it there, providing I put a heavy enough piece of copper wire on it. On these, Yuan pines, really flexible. You can bend them down quite a lot, just slowly, with aluminium wire. So we're going to use aluminium wire on this one tonight. But it's it's not the only flexible Australian native, but it is one of the really quite flexible ones. Pretty much everything else I've got up here is quite hard to bend. But yeah, we'll set eventually, Mark, in position. So first up, I need to make a few choices on that so we don't have bearing wire and everything. Now, I really haven't looked at, I haven't really looked at this wall. I saw it for about 2 seconds on the sale day that the Native Club ran a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't seen it till just now. And I think I said to Barry at the time, yeah, look, this will make a good demonstration tree, but I don't know what I saw it then. I think I was thinking I was going to grow it as a sort of semi-cascade tree and just take advantage of all that weeping foliage, so I'm not going to cut off any of that. You can see I've got 3 trunks on there.
Yeah.
I was tempted to cut the big one off and just go with the 2, but I think if I tilt it that way, and then we weep most of these branches down, we can have quite a nice weeping style tree. And I find they work quite well, so if I'm going to weep things down, I can cut off some of these lower branches. And
You can. I've done it. It will.
so we've got some discussion going there. What can I do or can't do, Mel? What's Tom telling you?
We're just saying you can strike it from cuttings.
Oh, yes, yes.
I've shoved in a couple of pieces the size of what you just cut off, and they grew.
Yep, they will. Okay, so I'm going to weep it this way. So this big piece that's going right out the wrong way, I'm not going to keep. So that can go. Now, this tree will be auctioned at the end of the night, so it's going to be a good buy for someone. I want to talk it up as best I can.
We estimated the tree at about 20 years. We think the Ewans are going to grow slowly anyhow, so we're shooting it's around the 15 to 20 years growing in a pot from a Tassie nursery.
I'm pretty sure that'll be right. The guy who grew this is a guy called Will Fletcher, who runs a bonsai nursery down in Hobart. And Will grows, he grows only Australian natives in his bonsai nursery. And a lot of it is just endemic species to Tasmania. And Will's got the habit of, once he pots a tree, he doesn't touch them again. So this has probably been in this pot for 20 years. But having said that, I bought a probably 40-year-old one from Tasmania in a much bigger pot. It's probably in a pot this size, wide and deep, and it was in December I did a demonstration up at the Yarra Valley Club, and I cut it off down to that low on the night. Total restyle, and the tree didn't look back. So if someone does buy this, I don't think you'll have any issues with it not surviving being repotted. Okay, so we are going to have to do a bit of work on this trunk here to swing that around. What's that part of the round? Take some of these branches off. Now they'll bud back on bare wood. You can see that. All these lower branches have budded back. You can see Will at some stages cut that one to there, that one to there, and left the rest of it to grow on.
Yeah.
Was that to protect that?
It doesn't matter. We'll auction that off at the end of the night as well.
you don't see many hue and pines in bonsai shows. Within the native club we have a couple that members have. Val's got one or two. I have one. The other members have them as well.
You said he's got a nice one. Well, she did it before.
Convention down in Tasmania, when they had a hue and pine in a pot, made out of hue and pine on a stand. Made out of hue and
Wow.
Yes, and I'm just reinforcing what David pushed earlier. If you can get to the convention, you really want to, and you'll never have a better opportunity than probably in the next 2 years. They're both in Melbourne. There's the Northwest one, which is next year, our own club. And then the following year, the Native Club is doing one in Melbourne as well, and all of which are just native trees. But don't let that put you off. There are some native trees around that are as good as any other exotic tree I've seen in Australia. The native bonsai around, and they're just getting better and better because there are more and more people getting interested in doing them. And I can tell that just by the number of people joining a native club. In the 3 years we've been going, we now have 130 members, which is not far behind, it's probably not even far behind Northwest, and it's probably getting close to the second largest club in Melbourne in 3 years. So there's a big interest out there. And yes, a lot of the members are members of other clubs, but there are also a lot of people who are just coming into the club because they're interested in doing natives. Okay, I might just leave it at that, Brad. If you could, you don't have to do it on the table, you can do it there, or wherever it suits you. Just what, this is the, I want to bend all those down. This one I want to bend and bring it around. That, it's going to sit like that. So that's going to be my main tree there. That'll be the top of it, which will come over there. Probably seen the one that has the weeping foliage, yellow flowers. Quite often we've had them on display here. Oh, there's one there.
Yes, in an orange pot.
Whose is that? Yours?
No.
Mine's the little sticky wattle. Okay, so there's a lovely little sticky wattle there. Can I bring it up here? They're the one that you see, the wattles you see that most commonly come along to clubs. And you can see they're beautiful little weeping foliage, natural weeping foliage. Just weep down, have a little sort of creamy yellow flowers. This has got a few here.
Yep.
Not sure if I've got the back or the front. That's the front. We're looking at the front. Okay, so that's the front. So you can see those little creamy yellow flowers. That's the one you'll see a lot of come along to shows, and why wouldn't you? They're lovely little trees. But I thought,
And they get
someone did bring one. Sorry.
such pretty arching.
They do. They naturally arch, and for me, the secret to growing these is to you'll be cutting this back fairly hard in probably the next month, and to an arch that goes up. Because you don't want to cut to an underneath one, you just send the branches straight down and you clutter it all up in there. So you cut to an upright, an arch that's going up, or a leaf that's going up, or a little branch that's going up, and you have virtually nothing left. It's almost a bare skeleton with maybe, I don't know, half a dozen leaves on it. But they'll grow so quickly that they'll arch again. By this time next year, you'll have to do the same again. So these things have a natural, lovely little arching effect.
If you turn it round, hold it up, people can see the arches from the back.
Okay, so there we go. You can see it sort of has that little arching effect. All natural. I don't think you would ever have any wire in this.
No, they
And
just
it's
do
probably one, I said you need to be wiring your trees.
There's two types too.
The one I've got at home, I think it's got 2 wires on it, that's all.
That's the good deal.
So they're well worth getting, but because I knew one of those was going to come along, I bought a different one. This is called the narrow leaf wattle. It's Acacia mucronata from, well, it comes from Tasmania, but it also grows in the southeast corner of Victoria. And this is ready to burst out in lots of flowers. If you come up later, you'll see lots of little flower buds happening on it. Very brittle. I have wired it with copper to roughly put it in place where I want it to. This is only the first year since it was styled this time last year, so it's still got a lot of development to make, but I think it's going to make a nice tree. I saw a wonderful one in Tasmania last year, a really old tree. It was at Will Fletcher's nursery. It didn't belong to Will. Will's the guy who grows the Huon pines. He was mining it for someone. And that's what inspired me to get this tree from him. And the one he had in the nursery was probably this wide at the base. Just beautiful piece. So look, it's a bit of an experiment with me, but this, in its natural habitat, this particular species tends to grow an upright tree along streams. This was a selective form that is a spreading form, so it naturally spreads. Clever nurseryman thought, okay, I can grow that naturally spreads. Let's go and take some cuttings off the one that naturally spreads, and this is the result. And that's probably a good thing to think about too. The sticky wattle there you've got there is not how it grows generally in nature. It's generally an upright tree.
Yeah.
I think Kerry got stuck with it and thought, oh, that's a nice big case of how we I'll buy, but of course it was one that was growing straight up.
There is one that grows from that.
Yeah, well, the natural form in nature is an upright sort of, sometimes multi-trunk type of tree. That one has been selected because it has that weakening effect, as does this. So you're lucky these days that some of the nurseries are picking things that are going to work for us as bonsai people. Obviously, the Huon pine, that's how it tends to grow. That wasn't naturally selected. It wasn't naturally selected. It wasn't selected by the nurseryman. So yeah, a weeping form of the Acacia mucronata, I think will make a nice tree eventually. I suppose this kind of, well, we've got this one up, I can talk about styling Australian natives. You know, we've had countless discussions at the Native Club on the Australian, countless discussions on the Australian style. Is there one? If so, what is it? How do we need to do our bonsai differently with Australian natives? On all of those things, I'm not a great believer that there is an Australian style, and that's going to come at odds with a lot of other good growers out there. I think we follow the same ideas through in styling Australian natives. We would a maple or a pine or whatever it is. For me, we still want to have our eyes drawn into the centre of the tree, so we need to have a branch out this side and a branch this side, which draws the eye into the tree, so we see the interesting trunk lines. We also need to have some depth, so that our eye doesn't continue through to nothing. So this tree here, hopefully, you're looking at the front of about where Ray is. That's the front for you guys, about there. About there. Hopefully your eye is eventually going to be drawn into the tree. It's obviously, and another thing I like about whatever bonsai I do, I like some sort of flow in a direction or a movement to a certain side. I don't like that one, it's going to say a little, how winky your eye, no, that moves. I'm not going to look at the eye on there because that's a totally different effect. But sometimes you'll see a tree that is almost symmetrical both sides. And for me, that I don't like that. I'm not saying it's wrong, I don't like it. Even if it's a formal upright tree, you need to have one side longer than the other. I think you do. So what I'm looking for in this tree, I've got flow and movement that way. I have a rounded crown eventually. Remember, this has only been shaped for 12 months, so there's still development got to happen. But a rounded crown, asymmetric rounded triangle, so shorter this side, longer that side. I have depth coming from this branch. I probably could wire that little piece around a little bit just to fill that in a little bit more. what else do we need to have? Obviously we want to have branching tapering as we go from here to here to here, and then up there we get thinner and thinner as we go. And that's a principle we try to follow with whatever bonsai we're doing. Maples, pines, whatever. No reason why we shouldn't do that with Australian natives as well. So the same sort of principles I believe apply to Australian natives as apply to any other bonsai. I don't go along with this because I've seen so many bad things as a style, a very natural style. Now you hear this so often, but personally I don't know what that is. To me it's a bit of a cop-out for I've done nothing really. And you know, I try to, and I don't, and I know I'm at odds with some really good Australian native bonsai growers here. I don't even have a picture of how that tree might grow in nature when I style it up. I don't care how it grows in nature. It's how this individual specimen that I have in front of me here today, how is that best? How can I shape that up best? Whether it grows in nature, this we know this grows as an upright tree. This has been selected form, but if I thought, okay, I'll grow as an upright tree, that's how they grow. Well, you know, I'm fighting against everything that this particular specimen wants to do. So my view is I tackle individual specimens and try to get the best result from those, regardless of however it might be found out in nature. And you can safely bet if you've got a tree that in nature cascades down, always cascades down, always does this, and you find one in the nursery that grows straight up, and that's the one that appeals to you, you can safely bet somewhere out there in nature there will be another one that grows straight up. Might only be one, but there will be one there. So don't get locked in to try and grow them how they grow in nature. You do have to take into account the natural response of branches to where they are. Generally we find, particularly this species, everything wants to grow up. So you can shape it to some degree, but then its natural habit will start to dictate how you then maintain the tree, and you'll develop, in this case, sort of a, if we had to call this one time, I'd probably call this a broom too, if you like, even though it's a wiggly trunk, and that one's still close if I had to call it would be a broom style. But so once I put the basic structure into a tree, it'll be this one, this one, this one here, any of these, then the natural habit where the branches want to go tends to take over, and that's when you kind of get them more conforming to how they might grow in nature. But the initial styling, I just work on the feature of the particular specimen in front of me. Okay, so that's got through pretty much all the trees except for Banksia. Now I had some notes I wanted to talk about here. Potting. Potting is sometimes one of the big dramas I guess people have with growing Australian natives who've been taught or learnt in the past that they're pretty touchy. You touch the roots and you can lose the tree. That's not really been our experience. Once they've been in pots, got nice fibrous root system, they seem to be as responsive, if not more responsive, than pretty much most other species. I have no trouble with potting any of these. I said before that if I had a choice I'd probably do it in October, but I've done trees at any time of year, had no problem. Middle of summer, middle of winter, no real issues. I do use I use a standard mix for everything I grow, whether it be pine, an elm, a maple, a native, it all goes into the same mix. I don't have a different mix for natives as opposed to exotics. It's just too hard to do that. You could do it, but maybe you get marginally better growth by going, slightly, I'll put a bit more gravel in this mix than I will in that. You might get marginally better growth, but how much more trouble is it to try and have different mixes from different species? It's just not worth it. So I use the same standard mix that I use for everything. And I'm sure you've all got your own mixes. Damien, wherever he is, saw him coming in with a truckload of stuff. He'll have his mix and his mix will be great. So I just use the same mix for everything. If you're using Damien's mix, if you're using your own mix and you're getting your result, don't try and micromanage it for Australian natives, just use the same ones. But they're not as hard to collect, I don't think, as most pines would be to collect. As I said, the eucalypts are quite difficult because predominantly they just have a fairly single tap root that goes down a long way before you start hitting any lateral roots, so they're quite difficult to collect. But callistemons, melaleucas, kunzias, in general, they're not bad. It is a bit species dependent. Cuspal tea trees I know are difficult, but other tea trees you could easily, so can't give any real guidelines of what's going to work and what isn't. It's really a bit of trial and error. I would suggest they tend to go on the smaller side of things. Having said that, I know Matt, for one, has dug some monstrous callistemons out. Firstly, no roots, no survive. Who knows, maybe he's lucky, maybe he wasn't, but they survived. Cuttings, very easy to strike on most Australian natives, taken at the right time, shouldn't have any problems. Seed, you can grow them from seed. I don't do any of these things, I just tend to buy bigger nursery stuff or dig them, but you can do them all that way. Air layering, Mark asked about air layering before. I don't know, anybody ever tried to air layer a wattle? I never have. I'm doubting it would probably work, but, well, anything can work, but it's probably difficult. Never tried to air layer a eucalypt, apart from the red gums I talked about that seem to self-air layer, so they can probably do it. Tea trees.
Do you think flowering gum would air layer?
Don't know, Matt. Look, it doesn't hurt, but is that the one I sold you?
The one with the big graft on it?
Yeah, I know the one. So they're always grown from grafts generally. I don't know, Matt. Anybody thoughts on whether it might grow?
For the price of a 6-pack, I think you're wrong.
No, it wasn't all that expensive, was it, when I sold it? So, look, I don't know. It may. I don't know how you cook for you. I've never tried one. I'm thinking probably more difficult than some. As I said, the river red gum seem to do it quite easily. There's probably others out there that do as well, but flowering gum you've got, I don't know.
Right, here's something to try.
Oh, it's too good a tree. What do you want to change it for?
They graft bicifolia.
Sorry, Tom?
They graft bicifolia.
Yeah, it's graft, and that's the one that Matt's got. It's the bicifolia. It's a grafted variety, and unfortunately where the graft is, it's quite noticeable. So I think Matt's trying to get around the graft by putting some roots above the graft.
I just leave it on the floor so I don't even notice it.
Yeah, well, planted in a deep pot. Yes, I don't know whether they'll air layer, but some things will. Like we said, we discussed melaleucas will air layer quite easily. Some of the tea trees will be okay. I'll talk about Banksias in a minute. I've never air layered one of those. Anybody had a go at a Banksia air layer? I would doubt that would air layer terribly well, but I'm sure there's some chance it could. Wiring, I've talked about wiring. I'm tending to go with copper wire on certainly the brittle species because it means I don't have to overbend and I'm less likely to break things. Some of these trees I brought into market before about aluminium wire because that's what I was using until probably 2 years ago before I started using copper wire. Most of them are fine with wiring. I'm not finding any detrimental effects by wiring and having branches die. I know people have said that, but I haven't noticed that myself. I haven't really noticed wiring branches below the horizontal having any real negative effects on plants. Certainly, you know, this one's slightly below horizontal, but it's growing strongly. Tea tree.
Nikolai doesn't like going past the horizontal.
Okay, so the gums, Nikolai is what Tom's saying, and that bears out what I've seen with Nikolai. It tends to drop branches anyhow, and probably those branches wide down don't do terribly well. What else have we got? Pruning, okay. Some species will bud back really well on bare wood. So you can chop back heavy pieces and grow in new things. Others won't. That's really going to be for you guys to find out yourself what works, what doesn't. I know most of the melaleucas I've tried bud back well on bare wood. Even the wattles to some degree do. That little guy does, the Howittii. But you can't, I found I couldn't cut it off here and expect it to bud back, but if I cut it back here and left some green foliage on, I think I'd find eventually that I get some buds on the bare bit that I actually cut it off. Same with the coastal tea tree. I found that, in fact, this little bit is. This was just an example. You can grow little minis if you want to. I've got 3 or 4 others very similar to this, and they're all going to get planted on a rock somewhere. But I just brought this one in tonight. But I noticed this morning, before I rubbed it off, I had little buds forming down the bottom here on barewood. There was nothing there, I had little buds happening there. So, you know, they will do it, but not reliably. And this also comes back to flexibility with wiring. Now, at the Native Club, we quite often give away little seedlings, and tube stock, that sort of thing. In our first year, I think every week we were giving these things away, and I got a couple, sort of tied them in knots when they're only quite small, and just let them grow, and you can see that's a lovely little tree now. Others I know have done the same thing and are growing bigger trees, so they now have bigger trunks, do this sort of thing. So if you want to put this sort of work into it, you need to do it early in the life of the tree, because to do that once it gets thick, well, you can't do it with many exotics either, but certainly with the natives you won't be able to get much bending in them.
Do the wire scars grow out of them at all?
Yeah, they do. I think I did have some on this, but they've tended to grow out. Some are less likely to grow out than others. I haven't yet, I think I had a couple of wire scars on this, which I suspect might take longer on the wattles to grow out, but some of the thicker bark things shouldn't be an issue. I have a eucalypt at home, and I don't mind the wire cutting it at all, because it sheds its bark and it tends to, the one nut tends to disappear in about 12 months every time it sheds its bark. So, yeah, I haven't had a huge issue with that. Certainly that's probably more likely to retain the wire marks longer than any of the others that I've got up here, but I wouldn't let that put me off wiring them up. Gins and sharis, well, we talked a bit about that. If you want to put deadwood on them, do so. This one here has some natural hollows in there, which are obviously branches that were cut off at some stage, and the tree is now rotted all down the centre just naturally. I didn't do anything, but there's a hole here and there's a hole here, and it's just rotted down there naturally. And that comes, and talking about this particular tree and acacias, you know, when I'm sort of in the trade, you know, you'd say to people, oh, well, you know, acacias don't live much over 15 years, you know, then they rot out, fall over, get wind bore in them, the wind blows them over. I think, you know, when we're going to grow these as bonsai, I think we can increase the lifespan a lot, because the trees are going to be well watered, well fed, pests and diseases are going to be monitored, hopefully. So I think we can
repotted. And repotted.
And repotted, yes, so
that
getting,
gives them a new...
Yeah, rejuvenating root systems all the time.
But they don't reach the mature height, because that's what kills some of them, especially the coastal tea tree. They've got a 20-year lifespan.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're maintaining them in a controlled environment, so that I think any of those short-lived species are worth trying, because I think we'll keep them going much longer. I know of one wattle that's been grown as 40 years as bonsai and looks really, really healthy. It's a little weeping gold lace. So don't be put off not trying a species because you think it's going to be short-lived. I think you'll find that the lifespans will go out quite a lot. Deadwood, I don't mind hollows and even gins and showers if you want to. I have a river red gum at home where it's completely sort of carved out down the front, and I've blackened it to make it look like it's been through a bushfire. That's another thing you can do, I guess, just to make it a bit more realistic. Species easy to do, hard, don't go on through those bending and flexibility with space. You can, if you want, particularly worrying somewhat, you can still use things like raffia on them, which will probably give you some more chance at bending things. Probably worth trying. I have a species of Beckia at home. which has, you've seen coastal tea trees with that ropey look on them, you know what I'm talking about, you know, down the beach, so they have the ropey, you know, the trunk, and you get a whole lot of individual little ropey bits going up the trunk. Fissures, if you like. So I have a deck here at home that has that only in miniature. And what tends to happen, those fissures or ropey bits are feeding a single little branch. So you might have a ropey bit coming up here, or coming all the way up here and just feeding that one little branch. So each one of those little ropey pieces is feeding a single little branch. And so what that tends to do is that little ropey bit forms its own like little tree, if you like. So that if you want to split the tree between the ropey bits, you can then twist and bend. You know, I've explained all this, but twist and bend, and that's a good way of approaching a lot of natives is to twist and bend at the same time. You'll find you get better results rather than just going straight bend, bring it out and then twist it that way. You'll get much better results. Australian style, we've talked about watering. What do you reckon? Easy? I mean, do I have to water a lot? Do I have to water not much? Any thoughts?
Just keep watering.
Who hand it those Australian natives?
Water it when you need to.
When you need to? Is that going to be more or less often than an exotic?
Exactly the same.
I tend to probably water on my natives more than I water anything else. I know in nature we tend to think of being struck all, like droughts, all that sort of stuff. And once they go into these pots, they become pretty hungry for water, and I find I've got to water them. These will dry up much more quickly than, I don't know, the elms or the prunices and the quinches you've got on the table there. Not only because it's evergreen, I'm talking about even when they're both in leaf. They just seem to need a lot more water. And sometimes they're less tolerant of drying out than like your prunices or your elms. If they dry out, they can drop their foliage and water them again, a bit of sea salt, and they'll come back in. These things, you do that, you've probably lost the tree. So watering is a lot more critical with Australian natives than it is, I think, than it is with exotics. I don't think because they're drought tolerant, they're always going to be drought tolerant in pots.
What sort of fertiliser do you use?
Okay, fertilisers, Lola's asked. I use the same fertiliser on all my trees. Yeah, I do, except for Banksias. I'll put Australian native Osmocote on those. I do vary a little bit. Okay, Banksias are other plants in the Proteaceae plant family, which is Banksias, Grevilleas, Hakeas, a few others. I just use Australian native Osmocote on those. That's all I put on there. But everything else pretty much just gets normal Osmocote, then power feed sea salt, 2-3 times. Ideally, I'd like to do it every 2 or 3 weeks, but that doesn't happen. It's probably monthly. They might get a liquid feed. Probably don't often get that, but that's my aim to do it at least monthly. The only things I'm a bit reluctant to put liquid feeds like power feed on these guys. These tend to have what's called nitrogen fixing nodules. They have little nodules on the roots that sort of fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. So I tend not to want to put too much nitrogen in those. I don't know, this is just my thoughts. I've seen acacias not do very well, and usually it's after they've had a heavy feed of a liquid feed. So that's about the only thing I have any reservations about, is maybe nitrogen on acacias and phosphorus on Banksias, etc. I don't know why I left that down to the last. It wasn't anything special, it was just too far away to get to. So this is Banksia marginata, which is a silver Banksia. You'll see down along Ricketts Point, a lot of these tend to grow with that habit, upright, fairly, I think, I was going to say graceful, but it's not. You'll see also I have a couple of big chunky things. Tending to grow just nicely upright, These are very hard to bend. They're like carrots. You start bending too much and they just snap without any indication as to what's going to happen. So I try to get the wire on these early, have them set in position, and that's it. I don't do much after that. Once they're set, and then I just pinch. I don't seem to have any problem with these. If I want, I can defoliate them, get extra branches, smaller leaves. This one is called Mini Marge, which is a variety that has small leaves anyhow. Banksias are well worth growing as bonsai. You can grow nice little ones up, you can grow real big monsters up. In fact, at the native sale day, several of you here bought Banksia serrata, which is the old man Banksia, 20 to 25-year-old in pots, only ever grown in pots, and they had trunks like this. They were massive things, thick as your leg. I don't know what to pay for them, $200, maybe not even that. So they will go up or butt up, get a big butt on them very, very quickly. Although these are 25 years, but they had never been repotted. They've just been grown in, what were they, 12-inch pots, I think. No, yours was. Our normal 300 mil pot, I think, might have been 250 mil pot. And the trunk almost filled the pot in some cases. And they've never been repotted probably since they went in as a small tree, because I know Will, that's his technique. He doesn't pop much. But, you know, these were massive trees. They hadn't been grown on quick. So you can get some really big Banksias. This one I'm not growing in that style. The issue main problem I find with Banksias, they tend not to heal over wounds terribly well. These chops here were done about 3 or 4 years ago, and there's no sign of that rolling over at all. There are some older cuts sort of up through here that have been on for many, many years that are starting to roll over in here and there. So that's one of the drawbacks with the Banksias if you're wanting to. And you can't really have gins in them because the wood is sort of very pithy. So that might be the only drawback with them. But, you know, those big monsters that the guy bought from Will the other day, I have a big one at home as well, which is this big across the base, and it's only about this high from the floor, and you can't see any chop off woods. It's had them, but they've rolled over, grown over. So if it is a fault, it's not a huge one to deal with. Flowers on these things, I tend not to let them flower. They develop the buds when I cut the buds off, because what I've found, where the flower buds is, the branch thickens up too much. So you get a very thick piece on the end of the branch where the flower was. So I tend just to forego the flowers. A lot of people don't, but I do. I just cut the flowers off. I'm growing it for the overall shape, I'm not growing it for flowers. Obviously the living poke here, the one with all white flowers, you can't stop that from flowering. It doesn't have any adverse effects. I don't stop these from flowering, but some things, you know, I'm not growing for flowers. Like the coastal tea trees, if it flowers fine, but I just constantly pinch it in so it doesn't form a lot of flowers. Matt asked about the flowering gum. I do have a very big one of those at home, which I do let flower. And I cut the flower off at the end of the flowering season. That's about the only thing I deliberately let flower. Callistemons I let flower, although I don't really care whether they flower or not. I'm just growing it for shape. But I do let them flower. But certainly not Banksias. I don't let those flower. Yeah, you do it. See, you could just take a tree like that if you wanted to, but what I want to do is try and weak all the branches down. Now Barry's been going at this for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, and pretty much, you know, everything that I wanted wired is wired, so it hasn't taken him a long time to do that. And hopefully we can get a tree that's going to look, something on the angle. Box or pot, there's some orchid pot, just prop them up in that. No, just in the orchid pot probably okay, and just sort of put it the angle I want. Maybe bring a wedge. You got wedges there, Ted? Or are they outside? If they're outside, Okay. Okay, so I tend to grow these, as I said, with a tank stick, with a bit of a weeding habit. Now, I don't know who's been down to Franklin on Gordon or Gordon on Franklin or where it is, Franklin River down in anybody been down there, down in Tassie, up the Franklin River? How do these things grow down there, Tony?
Sort of went down into the water.
So they're coming over water. That's what. Well, I had that in mind with this one, but I have been there. But it was a horrible day we were there. I think we just all sort of hid in these cabin positions, so it doesn't get much sun after about 11 o'clock, I suppose. Even in summer, it will then go under shade cloth for a lot of the summer, especially on the hot days. So I just want to weep all these down. I will shorten some back. There's some heavy water on that one, I think I can. Yeah, just take it from here. Barry had a lot of paperwork he was going to do tonight while all this was on. I knew he'd rather do this. Oh, right, okay. Only broke. As I said, they're very flexible. It's very hard to do these sort of things in a. I mean, if I was doing this at home, I'd probably spend all afternoon on it. Not always easy to.
When would you repot?
This one, I'd be happy to repot this tomorrow. So the lucky buyer can buy some of Damien's potting mix tonight. And oh no, seriously, yeah, look, any time, Tony. When I first bought one of these, someone said, oh, they're really touchy, you should only ever touch them in winter, don't do anything else. And as I said, that demonstration I did at Yarra Valley, I was looking for something to do. The only thing I had was this, one of these in my yard. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. And it was a big tree. The whole thing was done in the one session, middle of December. It was the last meeting of the year, I think, over there. And came out the big pot, probably 60% of the foliage was removed and repotted, and it didn't look back. So, but look, in an ideal world, if I had everything going for me, I'd probably try and do it in probably October, early October. But, I think we'd be happy to do it tomorrow. That's right. I'm going to take out some of this hanging down stuff that's underneath. Some of this stuff. Not that shape. So what shape of it? Look, you could go down.